There are two ways to get to somewhere. The first is that you go with the flow. What comes along, you leave it to chance, and whether you get to a different place or not doesn't really matter. Have you had that experience before? Your first job or your first school? You didn't really know how you ended up in that place. I had the same experience also. The second way is to take full responsibility and define the path there. It is not leaving it to chance, and today I'll be sharing with you my process on how I've been achieving my own financial goals and how I use it to design my own life. Today I'm still using these few steps and hopefully they can benefit you in big ways. I think of achieving financial goals and designing life in four parts. The first is having the purpose. The second is the goal setting process. The third is the path to achieving the goals. And the fourth are the little steps to take. Let's start with the purpose first. My dad had a stroke and he had only been retired for about a year or so then. Back then I haven't even graduated. And that period was very tough on me. It was also a wake-up call because before that I didn't really worry too much about money and didn't worry too much about where I'll get to financially. So once that happened, and again I was in my early 20s, my purpose became to build wealth as quickly as I can. I worked part-time jobs when my friends were having fun after school. I didn't want to retire at the age of 60 like my dad, only to go down with stroke. It is true that many parts of what I've decided in my early 20s were driven by fear, and I was really willing to work and hustle harder than anyone in my friends' circle. Then my boy came when I was age of 31. Something big changed in me. Not only did I realize that hustling hard is a key component to helping me settle some of my fears as well as to help me get my goals, I quickly realized that I wanted to achieve more than that. I wanted to become excellent. Hustling hard wasn't enough in my eyes because I wanted to show myself as a role model to him. So as you can see, if the purpose comes with deep reasons, it is a source of motivation that doesn't burn out. It can be tapped on repeatedly to really fuel the ambition and fuel the hard work through the hard times. It is the foundation to the goal setting process, which is the second part. And as a further point to add, in the journey that I've been, I came to realize this. The why can also change. The why can also grow. Previously, my why was just my own retirement. But right now, my why incorporates my child, who is someone I want to be a role model for. And right now, at this moment, my why is even bigger because I realize I'm a teacher now, not only at home, but also to the public. I get recognized in public even when I'm wearing a mask on. Fans of this channel have came up to me on the streets to ask me personal finance questions. Once the purpose has been nailed down, the next part is the goal setting process. This itself has two parts. The first is visualization, and the second is telling people about it. I came to realize that the process of visualization needs two key components. The first is to think long term, and the second is to think big. Let's start with thinking long term. These questions should be included. What if I do this? What if I build this up and then this happens? What if I buy this first and then this happens, then I buy that? The long term always opens up the box of solutions. Everything becomes possible. In the short term, our constraints are still limited, but when we think long term, we can make moves that will yield exponential difference down the years. This saying is pretty good. Reimagining what's possible. Then the second part, which is to think of something big. I look at this luxury condo from my window. It looks nice, well illuminated, and I like to think the possibility that I can afford it comfortably. At least that choice seems to be cool to me. Whether I stay in it eventually or not doesn't really matter. I like to play with the math. I like to think about wealth in a way that is not really taught to me by my own dad or my own mom. In many ways, thinking of something big is like having stretch goals. And stretch goals need to have a few components. It needs to be hard to achieve. It also needs to force you to think of a new way to get there. Because this saying works, what gets you here may not get you there. You may need a new model, or you may need a new approach, something that is drastically different from your own paradigm right now. But applying stretch goals is also not for everybody. In this article, it's mentioned that ailing organizations shouldn't do stretch goals. That is because organizations that pursue stretch goals as a way of overcoming recent failure will ignore the tight constraints they have and are going for broke. They are asking for trouble, and they should resist the temptation to fly to the sun because their patched together efforts are most likely doomed. When you think about it in the personal finance space, that means that you need to have the financial basics ready. You need to have your home settled, you need to have your life fixed. Stretch goals are not the immediate priority if there are debts to pay and the income is fully used for expenses, which means to live month to month. Then comes the second part of the goal setting process, and that is to tell everyone about it. One of my big goals right now is to build my advisory work onto the metaverse. I don't have a whole lot of knowledge about it yet, and there is definitely a lot of work to get there. The first piece of this puzzle seems to be knowing about digital assets like NFTs. That is why in a recent community post I actually mentioned that I'm thinking of launching a Georgetown NFT. It is hard to achieve, but by telling everyone about it, I hold myself accountable. Accountability means taking responsibility, it means taking ownership, and it means to really try to do what you said you will. But if telling everybody about it is something that is not comfortable, there is a simple thing that you can do right now, which is to write it down for yourself. It's been mentioned before that 42% of people who have written down their goals are more likely to achieve them. The third is the path to achieving these goals. Every big goal seems scary. It feels like a mountain that takes many steps to get onto. Why not break it down into smaller steps? Small steps are also important. They compound over time. And if you think about it, every painting starts with a single stroke. In a combination, a full picture comes about. And that is why the power of small steps should not be ignored. In my pursuit of the Georgetown NFT, I mentioned the little small steps that I may be taking, which includes a time frame on when I will try to get it delivered, as well as a visualization of the captions that will be on these NFTs itself. After that is done, the path to achieving these goals are made easier when you surround yourself with like-minded people. It's been mentioned many times before that you are the average of the 5 people closest to you. If you have this financial goal to get to this amount or to this status, surround yourself with like-minded friends and family that are also on this path. That is where you can also learn from what they already know to accelerate your own journey. To complete your understanding of the path ahead to achieve your financial goals, it is important also to think of the cost of achieving them and whether you are willing to pay for it or not. It is not good enough to set big goals and yet not look at the price to pay or the cost to get there. And if the cost is too high, it is difficult for anyone to keep going ahead. So always trust your first instinct. The fourth part is to put in the little daily steps. As the saying goes, the best day to start was yesterday. The second best is today. That is why starting right now is important. Hit the iron when it's hot, simply because once you've gotten through the first few processes, it is the easiest to put your first foot forward. There are certainly going to be some days where you don't feel like doing it anymore, and it is normal. It is no secret that the biggest reason for anyone's success is that they have been consistent, and consistency comes when work is done even in the hardest period of time. I've been practicing this for quite a long while. That is to set my calendar ahead for the week, and that really shapes each and every day's direction. See if it's something that you would like to adopt. And with that, let me recap the key learning points for today. The first is the purpose that gives you all the motivation that you need for the long term. The second is the goal setting process, which requires long-term thinking and a big vision. The third is the path to achieving these goals, which includes breaking them down into small steps as well as to find like-minded people to be with you on your journey. And the fourth is the daily little steps. Put each foot forward every day and be consistent. I wish you all the best in achieving your financial goals. And as always, if you benefited from this sharing, smash on like and press on subscribe to stay tuned for more great content. With that, I'll sign off from this video and see you in the next one. Take care and goodbye.